Hello, everyone. This is the Armchair Warlord, and I'm coming to you live with a update on the current war in Ukraine. We're currently at H+72 from the start of the operation at 7 o'clock 3 days ago, Pacific time, and so we're currently at D+3. And unfortunately, right now, I do not have my usual co-host Kadhal Lars with me. I think she's been delayed. She should be coming in shortly. I'll start with a review of the cringiest cringe memes from the cringiest cringe memes I found on Twitter, and then we'll get into a more serious look at the current military situation on the ground. So, first of all, this is an excellent meme. This is from Malcolm Nance. This is making fun of Malcolm Nance. Apparently, the Ukrainians put out something earlier today that with a picture of like literally a cell phone somebody had dropped onto the ground at an intersection, saying this was a quote artillery fire locator beacon unquote. Which, look, I was in the artillery for 11 years. That's not how artillery works. And Malcolm Nance is supposedly an expert on this kind of thing, but apparently the brainworms have gotten to him too. So he's been getting dragged on this and other absolutely terrible takes all day. And I'd like to say hello to our guests. We have Quarter Ghost and Josh Graydon. Hello. Yeah, feel free to come up in the chat if you have any questions, comments, or anything else about what's going on. So, and I apologize to you in advance about my tabs of horror up here. I do actually browse the internet like this, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Okay, so also the Ukrainians have been putting out some propaganda recently about how they're which I'm going to address in more detail later. But they've been putting out some propaganda recently about how their ordinary citizens are getting armed up and ready to resist the Russian onslaught. And this is a picture they put out of some fashion model. This is an airsoft gun. This is airsoft. I think, in fact, this photo is from like a year ago, and it's like, do better, please. This is ridiculous. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, also our just the most informed person in Congress, and I think this guy is actually still in the Air Force Reserve. He's this dude is apparently a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force Reserve. Adam Kinzinger. Well-known Republican who's not actually a Republican. Who, and by the way, these tweets keep getting worse. Who, first of all, is Josh. She better watch out. She might put somebody's eye out. I don't think she was wearing eye pro in that picture. So we have so first of all, he's tweeting about the ghost of Kiev, and this is a picture from Digital Combat Simulator down here, which apparently the Ukrainians put out a video in Digital Combat Simulator with the ostensible exploits of the, quote, ghost of Kiev, unquote, who has shot down more Russian aircraft than the Ukrainians themselves claim to have shot down. But these tweets keep getting better. I'll show you how this gets even better. So this at Adam Kinzinger tweeted this. This man is a congressman, and all I have to say is I don't know how this man keeps on getting away with this. For those of us who might be a little bit confused, there's a fairly dark meme that goes around the internet where comedian Sam Hyde has his face photoshopped onto any kind of horrifying event that happens, and they photoshopped his name onto a fighter pilot here and put that out there, and Adam Kinzinger fell for it. Oh yeah, Quarter Ghost. I've got that one. That's in the queue here somewhere. So this was an actual quote by an actual congressman who was apparently receiving like intelligence briefings in the skiff in the basement of the Capitol, and this I have no words. Moving on. Talk about that later. See, also the Ukrainians have been putting out a bunch of pictures, which are being just aggressively retweeted by every Western aligned media outlet, saying how brave President Zelenskyy is for staying in Kiev. And by the way, we're not even sure he's actually in Kiev right now. And they're all posting basically the same photos of him in a gray outfit with a multi-cam pattern tactical vest. And these photos are all from last year. So, I mean, you'd think they could give us at least a recent photo of him. I mean, I don't think showing him inside of the bunker can be geolocated. I don't know. But, so yeah, this is more cringe. Let's see. But where's that Arma clip? Yeah, and actually, I'm so... so going along with this clip from Arma 3, this is another just amazing take on Twitter today, which is somebody saying, yes, let's fact check the veracity of the Ukrainians' propaganda campaign claim so we can take what shred of hope from them they have left. Again, there is a level of Baghdad Bob tier propaganda coming out pretty much almost entirely from the Ukrainians right now. And a lot of it is being regurgitated very uncritically by Western media and by open source intelligence people. And by the way, some of this stuff is even being regurgitated, is even being laundered by people within the U.S. government, people in the State Department, people in the DoD. For instance, there was a well-cited and there was a well-cited claim last night that the Russians had tried to do some kind of an airborne operation in south of Kiev, somewhere around like Bila Serkva, which I apologize if I'm butchering the pronunciation. The Ukrainians claim to have shot down 2 Il-76 aircraft, which are huge transport planes. They're like C-17s, right? Russian C-17s, basically, loaded with paratroopers, shot down in Bila Serkva. And this claim was backed up, right? There were people in the State Department with security clearances telling the media, telling the Associated Press that this happened. And guess what? That was close to 24 hours ago now, and there has been no evidence of this. There has been no evidence at all that this ever happened. No wreckage, no nothing. And people just sort of quietly abandoned the claim. So, I mean, I hate to say this, but if you're reading something that originates from a Ukrainian source, right, and it does not have pictures or video associated with it, and even if it does have pictures or video associated with it, and those pictures and video haven't been vetted, right, because they're showing a lot of old stuff. There's all kinds of old bad clips running around. Honestly, if the Ukrainians are saying something, and this is a claim originating from them, that you should probably take it with consider it to be at a minimum unverified and probably more likely propaganda until proven otherwise, right? And also the other thing about the other sort of aspect of the info war going on here is the Russians really have said barely anything so far. They really have not been talking since the start of the invasion. So most of the claims you're seeing out there are Ukrainian in origin, and it's a sign you're let me just put it this way: it's a sign the war is going badly for you when the glorious victories you're winning keep getting closer and closer to the capital. And well, that's kind of what's happening right now. I mean, I've seen just astonishingly bad. In fact, we're actually seeing the same kind of takes right now as we were seeing, except only faster because social media has just exploded since then. That we were seeing during the invasion of Iraq in 2003, in which, I mean, the U.S. Army marched on Baghdad and took it in 21 days. And guess what? The thing was, for those of you who lived through that campaign, within, I'd say, day 2, day 3, week 1, there were just constant suggestions that the U.S. Army was bogged down. We weren't advancing. We were not. That we were not. We were afraid to go into the cities. Like this is just. I mean, anything you are hearing about what is going on, about the performance of the Russian military in the Ukraine, needs to be just put right alongside the performance of the U.S. military hitting Iraq, and then you need to conceptualize it, and then you need to sort of contextualize it with the fact that the Ukrainians are far more formidable than the army of Saddam Hussein circa 2003 was. In fact, here's basically a one-to-one comparison of D+2 of the respective campaigns, and we already have people suggesting that the Russians are bogged down. The campaign is going badly for them. That the Russian army is a paper tiger. This stuff is laughable. It's really, and I'd say if you see somebody who's pushing that kind of rhetoric, you need to stop. They don't know what they're talking about. You should not take what they're saying seriously going forward, because odds are they're not an expert. And trust me, there's a lot of people with military credentials who aren't expert in this kind of thing. I worked in a lot of heavy units. I know how this. I worked in a lot of heavy units, and I'm a little bit of a student of history. I have a pretty good idea of how the tempo of this fight is going, and the Russians are smoking through Ukraine right now. So just a little rant about a pet peeve I've seen of some of the more uninformed commentary I've seen on social media so far today. Save that picture for later. This is the thing. Actually, just to give you an idea of how quickly the Russians are pushing out, this is D+1. This picture is D+2, and I haven't seen a D+3 picture from this guy yet, but it's expanding. It's expanded significantly since then. Particular, basically, we're getting close to the point where the Russians are linking up the Donbass with Crimea, and I've seen indications they're starting to push around the southwest side of Kiev, and they've also pushed up into pushed significantly north with the Dnieper here, immediately north of Crimea. So they're pushing a little bit further north. Yeah, Josh Graydon is saying, yeah, Molotov cocktails, tanks' only true weaknesses. Yeah, I'll be talking about that. I'll be addressing that at some length later on, towards the tail end of this stream, because this actually is something which bothers the hell out of me. So Wikipedia actually is doing a pretty good job as far as making graphics here. Let me zoom this out a little bit. There we go. It's a large-scale overview of the conflict, and yeah, it's very, very clear. I'd say they're a little bit conservative on where the Russians are right now. There's some videos that have come out recently, just locating the Russians a little bit beyond where those red lines are. But on the other hand, this map also is 12 hours old probably. So. Jeff, I would give you a beer if I could reach through the the screen here and hand it to you. But unfortunately, beer by internet is not something that can be delivered just quite yet. So, just to run through the overall situation overview, right? Let me see how many people are watching right now. I have only a limited number of monitors. I got 4 watching now. Hello, everyone. So, like I said, I've only got a limited number of monitors here, so I can't watch the video and watch the StreamYards and watch my forest of tabs all at the same time. Let's see. So we'll do what we usually do and start in the south and work our way around clockwise. So what we've seen today, basically, there's been some fairly significant fighting, basically around Kherson. The Russians took the bridge very quickly, as well as the bridge in the dam in Novokakhovka, very quickly. And I think this red line here, the Russians have by now, I'm pretty sure, pushed past and secured this road. But there's been some pretty significant fighting in Kherson. I think the Ukrainians tried to conduct a counterattack in this area, and the Russians seem to have basically defeated that. And they've pushed north into Mykolaiv by this point. No indications they've pushed past there. We do know, actually, there was some video that came out earlier. I don't have the video pulled up for the stream, but it's a bad video anyways. This town here, basically this bridge here around Yuzhny, which is actually pretty far west of where the fighting was. The Ukrainians actually blew this bridge last night. So, although it didn't look like a very professional bridge blowing job, honestly, they just kind of cratered the bridge, which could be fixed pretty easily, but they did try to destroy this bridge. So, and again, just to provide a little bit of context to what's happening. So even if you're moving quickly during a military campaign, when you run into the enemy, you have to fight. You either have to fight them and defeat them or bypass them. And what we're seeing around here is basically both. The Russians have clearly dedicated the force to defeating the enemy in the vicinity of Kherson, probably because that threatens their bridgehead. And then they've also started to bypass towards Mykolaiv. And that'll let them threaten Odessa or probably just expand the bridgehead. I'm not... I think this whole show to the northwest of the Crimea is... I mean, I think they're going to sort of keep on expanding this, but I very much doubt this is their main effort. Mostly because there's really nothing to hit in this direction, right? The big target is Odessa, and it would take them a while to get to Odessa. It'd probably take them a couple of days to fully move down to Odessa, and they would need to dedicate a lot of forces to it now, because apparently there's a lot of Ukrainian troops around here, which that might be what's sort of moving east and engaging them around this bridgehead. They've probably started to move. But honestly, right now the Russians are probably, at least in the south, are probably enemy-oriented and not terrain-oriented. They're probably just happy to fight the Ukrainians wherever they can find them, and if they can fight that a little bit more defensively around here and not go push straight to Odessa, they're probably happy with that. Sort of one of those military maxims that if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority, and even a distributed attack like this, the Russians are prioritizing stuff. And what I suspect is they're going to basically bite and hold onto this bridgehead over the Dniester here and hold on to this until they sort of mop up the east side of the country. Now, and we can see this from their actions on the east side of their Crimean bridgehead. Landhead, I guess. The Isthmus of Perekop isn't a bridge. I mean, it has some similarities to one. It's very narrow, but I'm not going to go talk Clausewitz here. So, as you can see here, they're expanding expanding out to the east. Specifically, it's been pretty well established. They've seized Melitopol by now. Wikipedia is saying it's contested. I think there's still some Ukrainian units in the area, but the Russians are firmly in control of the line of communication around there. In particular, they've moved and seized the airport at least in Berdyansk, which is much further down the coast, and they're clearly trying to link up with troops coming out of the Donbass who are currently hitting Mariupol. So I would say it's likely that by this time tomorrow, the Russians will have a land connection between the Donbass and Crimea, and they'll probably be expanding this. Probably have Mariupol surrounded and Berdyansk surrounded, and any Ukrainian troops in those areas encircled, and they'll probably start expanding north towards like Zaporizhia. We know they're moving towards Zaporizhia right now, among other things, because there's a major bridgehead over the Dniester there. This is a significant city. They're just going to want to start pushing, start rolling this north. Moving along, really the big significant thing that happened today was the Russians broke out of the Donbass. There have been pretty significant fortifications built up in this area over the last 8 years, because this is sort of where the war in 2014 happened. This is what the front line ended up looking like. Well, the forces in the Donbass, and reading between the tea leaves, it seems to be mostly sort of the local separatist forces. I haven't seen a whole ton of evidence of Russian regulars there right now. They've broken through. They are currently hitting areas that are well behind that front. That are well behind that front line. Again, Mariupol has been Ukrainian held the whole time. In fact, the Ukrainians fought like hell to retain this area back in 2014, and it's currently getting hit in the process of getting surrounded. And this is a significant objective for the Russians, mainly because the infamous Ukrainian Azov battalion, my understanding is they're mostly based there. So the Russians, they do not like those guys. They want to take them out. So we're also seeing some breakthroughs further north and out of the Donbass. Let's see. So moving around further north, there is a significant battle happening right now. So that the Russians are sort of moving into this area. I'm probably trying to sort of cut off Ukrainian troops located around this perimeter. Yeah, right. Quartergos. So Quartergos is actually saying so. About a day ago, rumors came out that the Mariupol checkpoints were Azov controlled, and they were executing anyone suspected of being a Russian partisan. Well, apparently they all got blown up. I haven't heard anything about those checkpoints getting blown up by cruise missiles, but I did see there's a video floating around Twitter. You can find it pretty easily, but it's some people going to a checkpoint, ostensibly north of Mariupol, right? It's not clear where this is filmed, but some guys roll up to a checkpoint, and you see a bunch of people in Ukrainian uniforms. I'm not going to say they're necessarily Ukrainian soldiers, but individuals wearing Ukrainian uniforms run up to the car in front of them, pull the occupants out, just throw them to the ground, put guns on them, and it's a male and a female occupant, and the driver, the man, he starts fighting back, and they start, and it isn't clear, but they start shooting. At that point, the guy who's filming takes off. He drives clean through the checkpoint, but it's a disturbing video to say the least. Apparently, the claim is that these are members of the Azov battalion. But moving north to Kharkiv, so significant. This sort of significance here. Kharkiv is the second largest city in Ukraine. It's right near the Russian border, and there's a lot of Ukrainian troops who are stationed in Kharkiv. So they've been putting up a lot. They've been fighting like hell for the last 3 days. So that being said, the Russians don't seem to have really made a lot of very aggressive efforts to take Kharkiv. But as you can see from from the sort of general flow of combat, they've certainly started bypassing it. They're likely, what I'd say the Russians are probably doing in Kharkiv is they're probably executing holding attacks to keep the Ukrainian troops there from either moving southeast to reinforce the Donbass, or moving west from moving northwest. So really the main danger here would be, the main danger to the Russian effort here would be okay, these guys are going to move northwest and start punching into the flanks of this, right? So there's a lot of Ukrainian troops there. They could ball up and start churning northwest and make a lot of problems for this group that's trying to push west here. So what I think what the Russians are probably trying to do is just hold that group in Kharkiv and sort of slowly start working their way around them. And this will support what I'd call is almost certainly the Russian main effort, which is up north. So on the eastern side, so sort of the northeastern front here, the Russians have punched in. There's currently fighting ongoing around the city of Sumy, sort of actually pretty heavily contested. The Ukrainians seem to be so there seems to be some back and forth fighting happening there. However, the Russians seem to. I mean, I'd say the Russians probably have the main bypass road secured, which is probably what they care about. They're not going to worry too much about taking the city center until they're not going to worry too much about taking the city center if they can cut it off. They can cut it off and let sort of follow-on forces mop this up. The spearheads are going to want the Russian spearheads are going to just focus on gaining ground and getting as far into Ukraine as they can. So they're really not going to go into fight through urban areas unless it's absolutely unavoidable. And well, it looks to me like there's a ring road or some kind of militarily significant bypass around Sumy, and they've probably taken the ring road, and they have a force in there screening their efforts, screening the advance from the Ukrainians who seem to be kind of holed up in here, and they're just going to keep on pushing west. City of Konotop is in Russian hands. That's significantly further west, and we've got a video I'll show you guys here. Apparently Bakhmut here, which is shown as Ukrainian on this map. This is very much in Russian hands right now, and it was yesterday, Ukrainian time. And right now it's sort of around dawn in the Ukraine. The Bakhmut was in Russian hands as of yesterday afternoon. So probably tomorrow we'll start seeing news the Russians are hitting like Nizhin. Now, the other thing is we haven't seen a lot of evidence of Russian troops further north here, up to like Chostka. Not sure why. It may just be they haven't. May just be they're not. May just be they don't really care about this area that much. They have started coming down from the north. Apparently, they seem to have bypassed Chernihiv, but they are. They sort of seem to be pushing west of it. Cortigo says Russians are apparently holding up on their massive push to give time for the population to evacuate. 56 and 57th Regiment. Presumably the Ukrainian Army raised a white flag yesterday requesting a humanitarian corridor. If you could tell me where that is, I'd think that would be in Kiev, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Because if I let's see which. And so again, moving along to the probably the Russians' main effort here in coming down from the north towards Kiev, and apparently this is to a significant extent coming down really from both the Pripyat area in Chernobyl and This map shows that they haven't taken Overk, which I'd be surprised if they hadn't, because they probably want this road here through even Kyiv. But maybe they're sort of pushing down through Chernobyl and they're trying to expand out. They'll expand west later. Yeah, that they have an armored spearhead. I mean, they have troops very close to Kiev right now. They're not quite on the. They're not quite close up to the city, but they're certainly pushing. And the indicators I've seen tonight is showing there's fighting happening to the southwest of Kiev, like in Vasilkiv. And let me pull this up on the map, because the easy button for figuring out where an army is going to go is just figure out where the airfields are. And there's an airfield in Vasilkiv. If I can find it on this damn map. There we go. Yeah, apparently this area got at least bombarded tonight, and probably I'd say the Russians are trying to do a relatively loose encirclement of Kiev and then sort of tighten that up later. They would. So we know they're currently well established in Gostomel. And so Gostomel is here. And actually, just to follow up from my last stream, the Russians conducted an air assault really very early on in the war, like a couple of hours in. They helicopter troops into Gostomel, and the Ukrainians spent all the next day trying to kick them out of it. And that night, the Ukrainians put out a triumphant proclamation. We've reclaimed control of Gostomel Airport. We've chased the VDV into the woods. Well, sun rose, VDV was still very much in possession, and moreover, the Russian troops pushing down from Chernobyl had relieved them. So, Josh Grain has a question here. Any idea how long this conflict can run? I would say, I'd say probably we're looking at major I'd say probably that's a $1 million question. I would say we're probably looking at significant combat occurring for the next month. Although I think based on how things are happening and based on what is probably happening with the Ukrainian army right now, as far as their formations getting sort of pinned down, localized, and cut apart, but what I'm seeing right now sort of indicates that's about what's happening. I wouldn't be surprised if Ukraine was militarily defeated inside of the week, but there would still be a significant amount of fighting going on. Probably that would last through. My prediction right now is we could conservatively expect Kiev to fall by. Even if the Russians are pretty leisurely about this, we could expect Kiev to fall by the end of March. This is if they really sort of lay siege to it, and provided there is a significant defense being put up inside of it and doesn't sort of untangle itself. Yeah, Quarter Ghost pretty much agrees with me. I'm probably one more week of significant heavy combat before the Ukrainian military is defeated, and then several more weeks of sort of digging out urban areas and then probably pushing, then sort of taking all these, because right now what's happening is it's you can put arrows on maps all day, right? But right now what's basically happening is there are dozens of Russian combat groups, battalions, really dozens of Russian battalion tactical groups. We've talked about this before. Sort of pushing all over the Ukrainian landscape like spaghetti, right? And that anytime they find a major force, they're going to, like a significant enemy force, they're going to try to bypass that, right? They're going to bypass that. They'll leave it to follow-on forces. Well, those follow-on forces then have to go do their thing. That's a sort of the second echelon that we're starting to see move into Ukraine, because the Russians haven't sent all their guys in yet. They've still got a lot of guys in Russia, in Belarus, who are just starting to kind of push in. That'd be their second echelon. So what we're probably going to see here is this like spaghetti quilt of battalion tactical groups swarming all over probably eastern Ukraine in the Kiev region, and the operational defeat of the Ukrainian military, and largely by those which is sort of going to be dislocated by that initial wave, and then mopped up by the second wave. And I mean, this would basically leave half of Ukraine unoccupied, and then the Russians would probably have a significant operational pause and then resume the offensive to the west. So this could happen really between now and start of April, and as far as how quickly they advance and how much combat power the Ukrainians even have in the west of Ukraine right now, because I don't think they have a lot of combat power here. I mean, this could be. I mean, I'd say the Russians could probably be in full control of Ukraine by the end of April. So if that's to shorten that answer down a little bit, I mean, I'd say probably 1 week to make the outcome foreordained, and then probably 3 more weeks to cement this, and then probably another month to complete the occupation. Just because look, Ukraine is a big country. It's a lot, and this is a very significant military undertaking. And I mean I don't think the Ukrainians are going to just sort of fold up like the Iraqi government did in 2003. There's going to be, even in sort of even the sort of post even sort of later on in this campaign, I would expect there would be some level of significant resistance, at least enough to slow down the advance the Russians are going to just be able to drive into Lviv, right? Not at 60 miles an hour. They're going to have to work up to it. So that being said, we'll so how about now that we've sort of worked through that, we will. Josh saying, yeah. So Ukrainian insurgency. Let me just, and actually, this is a good seg into what I want to address later. So let me actually just use your segue there, Josh, which is that speaking of uncertainty, so the Ukrainian government over the last couple of days has said has made a just nationwide appeal to civilians to resist the Russians any way they can by with Molotov cocktails, and by building Molotov cocktails, and by they claim they've handed out in Kiev 25,000 assault rifles and 10 million rounds of ammunition and heavy weapons, anti-tank weapons. And this was handed out is my understanding is this is handed out on a no questions asked basis to anyone who wanted it, which let me pull up some which is, and I say this as a Second Amendment absolutist here in the United States. This is not how you win a war, and this is just reeks of. This smells of first of all, absolute desperation, and second of all, it is really inviting the Russian government to move into Kiev with just absolutely indiscriminate firepower. And in fact, I would. So let me go seg into this here. This is the Third Geneva Convention. relative to the treatment of prisoners of war. And specifically, Article 4, Third Geneva Convention. So essentially, this defines what a lawful combatant is. So prisoners of war in the sense of the present convention are persons belonging to one of the following categories who fall into the power of the enemy. Members of the armed forces of a party to the conflict. So as applied to the Ukraine, this would be a member of the Ukrainian Army, right? A member of the Russian Army. Members of other militias and members of other volunteer corps, including those of organized resistance movements belonging to a party of the conflict, such as Russia or Ukraine, operating in or outside their own territory, even if this territory is occupied, provided that such militias or volunteer corps, including such organized resistance movements, fulfill the following four conditions. All right, so if you want to be in a regular in a war, you want to be protected by the Geneva Conventions, be a lawful combatant, you have to do the following four things. And first of all, being commanded by a person responsible for his subordinates. I guess his might be a little bit gender exclusive for the modern day, but we'll go with it. That of having a fixed distinctive sign recognizable at a distance. That of carrying arms openly. And that of conducting their operations in accordance with the laws and customs of war. I would say that at best, this group of let me continue here, and then I'll give you my assessment on this. So paragraph 4 is not super important. Paragraph 5 is not super important. It's not super relevant. So also paragraph 6. Inhabitants of a non-occupied territory who, on the approach of the enemy, spontaneously take up arms to resist the invading forces without having had time to form themselves into regular armed units, provided they carry arms openly and respect the laws and customs of war. So, here's the thing. Let's apply this now. So let's talk about this a little bit in relationship to what's happening in Kiev right now. This arming of the civilian population of Kiev can hardly be called spontaneously, right? Hardly be called spontaneous. It was the result of government policy. The Ukrainians literally handed out guns on authority of the government to anyone who wanted one. So this, the way I read this paragraph, this tells me, like, if Joe Bob comes out on his front porch with a hunting rifle and starts shooting at you while you're rolling through his country, you can't, he's not going to be criminally liable for this, right? He's a patriot who decided to spontaneously resist you. And furthermore, what we've had is no indication that these Ukrainian militiamen have really started to form themselves into regular armed units. Now, and again, these Ukrainian militiamen are, I'm assuming they're going to carry their arms openly. We don't know if they're conducting their operations in accordance with the laws and customs of war. There have been a number of videos that have come out recently of, honestly, Russian POWs, and the Ukrainians are taking a few because that's, modern war, and modern wars involves a lot of confused fighting. And even if you're very much winning, guess what? There were a lot of Germans taken prisoner by the Poles in 1939. Quite a few, actually. Like, entire organized units surrendered. And I've seen videos of Russian prisoners getting beaten up. So not so certain about that one. That being said, there's been no indication these people are under some kind of regular command, or they're wearing any sort of a distinctive sign. I haven't even seen like armbands, right? It seems to really just be sort of hand out a gun to everybody, and we'll hope it creates so much chaos the Russians can't push in. And look, that is a clear cut and now I understand. I don't say this as a military lawyer, right? But I would. And this would sort of seem to me to be a pretty clear-cut violation, right? And moreover, this is what the Ukrainians have done is they've created a situation in which any individual, in which essentially any civilian in Kiev, within the Kiev region, could possibly be armed in could possibly be armed with, easily concealed weapons such as Molotov cocktails. You can hide that under a jacket, right? And they have just absolutely encouraged this, which means that the Russians would be completely within their rights to, and in fact, what I'd say the ethical. I wouldn't even say this would be ethical, but what I'd say something the Russians could do about this would be, once they finish isolating Kiev, would be to basically say, hey, we will establish a humanitarian corridor and can allow people who wish to leave the fighting to continue to leave, right? Because there's every train going west, every road going west right now is packed. There's the Ukrainian civilians are evacuating Kiev as quickly as they can. And the Russians could, once they've surrounded Kiev, they could say, hey, we will establish a humanitarian corridor. You're going through it. We're going to search you, but we'll let you continue to evacuate if you're a civilian or if you're a soldier who wants to surrender. And we'll give you whatever period of time to evacuate and to continue to leave the battlefield, because when they go into Kiev, like, they have every excuse at this point to go into Kiev weapons free, right? That means if it's on two legs and it's not wearing a Russian uniform, it dies. Because, again, the civilian population of Kiev has, as near as the Ukrainians are telling us, has been armed to the teeth and is ready to resist the invader in a unorganized fashion. And well, you're expecting Joe Ivan to allow a civilian in Kiev to get anywhere close to his BMP, when he could potentially pull a Molotov cocktail out from under his jacket and throw it at him. And this has been behavior that is encouraged by the Ukrainian government. That isn't something you ask soldiers to do. So, honestly, I really wouldn't be surprised if this was a very cynical play to attempt to provoke a bloodbath in Kiev. Because again, you're telling the Russians that any civilian in Kiev is a potential threat. Okay, like. Yeah, so Cortigo says in layman's terms, if we had such an excuse in one of our conflicts, after giving time for evacuation, we'd probably level the whole city. I think what the Ukrainian hope right now, what their sort of grand strategy is they're playing for Western intervention. They want NATO to jump into the war and to save them. This really explains. And almost, I think and again, I mentioned this in my previous stream, there's a difference between public and private messaging. Everyone in NATO is saying publicly they're not going to go in, but privately, I think somebody is telling the Ukrainians that help is on the way, that they're building consensus, and that they possibly that a major atrocity such as the Russians flattening Kiev would provoke a Western intervention. Well, I'll just leave that one hanging there like this. That's kind of where we're at right now, and this is scary. And honestly, I'm wondering if this is. So the other thing is, like, governments don't necessarily communicate in the same voice, right? So this might be, the head of state saying we're not going in, but there's some lower level war hawk in the State Department, some neocon congressman. I know a few. I think I cited some terrible tweets from some earlier, telling the Ukrainians, hey, give us that juicy headline and we'll go to war for you. And that's terrifying. Particularly because, there was talk yesterday. The Ukrainians were going to, sit down with the Russians and start negotiating. This was going to stop. And that hasn't happened. At this point, the window for negotiations is probably slammed well and truly shut. So, because I've had you all looking at the Wikipedia map with me talking over it for the last while. Let me go through some recent videos from the conflict. I got a few minutes left here before we close the stream up. If they load. This was from early yesterday, basically after the sun rose. Basically after the sort of sun came up, and the Ukrainians had claimed they'd retaken the airport in Gostomel. Well, so this was apparently a local civilian. Apparently, this is a local civilian going to the airport or the vicinity of the airport to pick his kid up, and so he runs into a military checkpoint, and those guys at that checkpoint are Russian paratroopers. So, like, apparently this guy didn't even know these guys were paratroopers until. Take care, Josh Grid. Yeah, so that basically this guy just walks up and talks to him, which so sort of a for the. But by the way, speaking of the ongoing meme war, for as dead set as the Ukrainians seem to be on resisting the Russian invasion, they seem to be awfully comfortable with walking up and having bro conversations with, like, Russian soldiers. Phoenix says, give us a headline, we'll help fight your war. Disgusting how little they care for human life. Yeah, I'm concerned that's what's being communicated to the Ukrainians in private. And by the way, this doesn't necessarily mean it's being communicated by, like, the State Department, but it might be communicated by individuals in Congress, by think tankers, through any number of unofficial channels of coordination. And the people are in the West, and war hawks in the United States are absolutely right now trying to build a case for intervention. And some of these people are probably telling the Ukrainians some things at the very highest levels, which may not, which may directly conflict with, like, current American policy. And speaking of, this is a guide the Ukrainian government recently put out as far as how to destroy tanks and Molotov cocktails. And apparently I want to point two things out about this. First of all, this is a T-55. So if this was the Hungarian Revolution, this would be a great product. This is not the Hungarian Revolution. That happened in 1956. So none of this is relevant to taking out a modern Russian vehicle. Also, they're saying, I think this is saying, jam metal bars into the drive sprockets. The U.S. Army actually conducted tests on this during World War II by trying to jam rifle barrels into the drive sprockets of much lighter tanks, like M2 medium tanks, for like 10 tons. Okay, T-72 is like 45 tons. If you jam a piece of rebar into its drive sprockets, it will chew that piece of rebar apart, and then the crew will probably get out of it and slap you for being an idiot. This is a good way to get killed. And God, I have all this stuff pulled up, and it's just not loading for me at all. I think because I'm streaming. I'm probably melting my bandwidth right now. Let me see. Oh yeah, this was show you this. This is the original Malcolm Nance tweet that I opened the stream on. We're 3 minutes out right now, so yeah. So this was a. By the way, Malcolm Nance was in intelligence forever. Let me see what this guy's bio is. He's like an MSNBC contributor. Malcolm Nance. Yeah, former U.S. Navy senior chief petty officer specializing in naval cryptology. He spent 20 years in the Navy as a crypto guy. He is, I think, he consults for MSNBC or something. So he's an American author and ostensible pundit on terrorism, intelligence, insurgency, and torture. Oh. And here this supposed expert is saying that a cell phone, this is like a Eastern European Gopnik burner phone, right? Is an artillery fire locator beacon. This is a claim that's so stupid. If you ever wonder why sometimes, I don't know, American intelligence gets things wildly wrong, like they did, a few months ago in Afghanistan. Well, let me just put it this way. Just because you're an intel guy doesn't mean you're smart. Yeah. And here we have a guy thinking a cell phone is going to somehow be able to have artillery fire home in it. Like that isn't how artillery works, guy. Oh my, this gives me a headache. This gives me a worse headache than I already have right now. So that's our I'd say that's probably our shit take of the day. I mean, I was going to show you guys some videos, but honestly, get on Twitter, look up war news. There's plenty of videos. They're all, and if somebody is just regurgitating that propaganda, just look for somebody who has a better take, because there's, yeah. And actually, there's something else I want to address is, because a lot of the open source intelligence guys they've sort of deputized themselves as assistants to the Ukrainian war effort. They're not really interested in telling the whole story, and there's a lot of people on social media spitting out propaganda, sort of acting as sort of self-deputized to assist the Ukrainian war effort. Look, this is a war between two countries in Eastern Europe, neither of which we're allied to. I'd say we here in it's official. The official policy of the U.S. government is we are sympathetic to Kiev. We're providing them aid, but we're. I mean, our president has said it many times. There are no Americans going to fight in Ukraine. So this is a war in which we lean towards one side, but in which we officially lean towards one side. But they're, again, nobody here is an ally of the United States. And there is some, and yeah, so in the simplistic narratives here, it's just a lot of that is bad. So, yeah, Phoenix says, yeah, not yet. I'll just read out some comments here to close out. So, Brother Malachi, hello, by the way, hello, Brother Malachi. So, yeah, says, Molotovs are a legitimate and horrifying tactic. I mean, let me just put this out for the stream for anybody who maybe in Ukraine, maybe considering doing this. Attacking a modern armored vehicle with a Molotov cocktail that's the least effective anti-armor weapon you can have. It's In general, if you throw a Molotov at pretty much anything, you don't either one throw like 50 of them, or two, sort of get lucky and like catch it on fire really good. If you don't like either get lucky or you don't throw a ton of them, it's not going to work. It's going to probably, you throw this at BMP or whatever, it's going to hit, splash across the armor. Maybe it'll set the vehicle on fire. Set it the top of the vehicle on fire for a minute or so, and then it'll burn out, and then it's going to spin that freaking turret around at you, and they're going to return the favor. I mean, the Molotovs were a marginal tactic in World War II, and maybe if you're going after light vehicles, like real soft skins, and you have a lot of them these days, maybe that'd work. But unless you're throwing this at a civilian vehicle, right? It's not going to be very effective. Anything with any kind of armor on is just gonna bounce that. Also, like any kind of military formation, people are covering each other, so you using hand thrown anti-armor weapons is very dangerous, to say the least. So because they're going to have soldiers on the ground looking for people trying to do that. Vehicles will cover each other even if the soldiers aren't dismounted. So I think I'll just close this stream on this note here. So Phoenix Argus has by the way, hello Phoenix. He says, got a great point here. So let's turn to Twitter and get assistance to fight on actual war. Why isn't this working? We're doing what the users on Twitter said. Most people who are just commenting on Twitter are completely uninformed. Even a lot of people who are commenting on Twitter who should be informed, because they're like, I've seen an astonishing number of shit takes from like military professionals who I like. Cortigo says some dumb schmuck tossed a Molotov at a transport vehicle today. And by the way, he was being smart. He threw it at a fueler. And it basically bounced off the cab. Like this is and the thing is that I don't know if this guy had an RPG or something. He could have done a lot of damage, but a Molotov, not so much. So it's just because somebody has has a military profile picture or has military experience. Malcolm Nance was in the Navy for 20 years. It might even have. I've seen dudes with like a lot of like tactical experience in Iraq, Afghanistan, saying stuff which just doesn't comport, doesn't add up. Probably because they were, probably because they're not really, probably because a few things. There's a lot of people who don't know about heavy warfare a lot. Just to sort of have a coda here. There was some video that came out today of there was a Russian APC and a Russian tank which were stopped on the road up here near Konotop. And a Ukrainian driver dropped by and talked to him a little while and talked to these guys, rolled down his window and actually spoke to them. And the Russian said, well, yeah, we're out of gas. Not sure if they were actually out of gas, but that's what they kind of looked to me like. They were actually sort of defending this tank, which was undergoing some kind of maintenance. But they told the guy they were out of gas. And and so the people on Twitter have been dunking on the Russians like, oh, you're running out of gas. You don't know how to do logistics, all day today, right? Over one dude in a parked empty LB on the road who told some Ukrainian they were out of gas. And you realize we're 48 hours into a major operation here, and that's this is actually a really long time for heavy units to go without refueling. So yeah, we're probably looking at the Russians have probably been in the process of refueling units that are running low on fuel, and they're sort of transition to a hasty defense out there in the countryside to wait for fuelers to come up. Again, we've also been seeing those fuelers coming up. So, I mean, heavy units they're very constrained by fuel. Even in the Russians take some measures that we don't do in the West. They have like auxiliary fuel tanks on their tanks and stuff to extend their range and their sort of the amount of time they can fight before they have to fill up. But yeah, I mean, between probably filling up at every diesel station they pass, and the Russians are also bringing fuelers up, I very much doubt this is a significant concern. And moreover, this is sort of the kind of thing you'd expect, right? And this is also assuming the Russians weren't just lying to the guy, because the way they were positioned, they were sort of positioned like right behind an IV line as you come over a hill. There was a tank that kind of looked like it was broken down on the road behind them that was sort of there were some maintenance dudes messing with. So it kind of looks to me like they were pulling security on the tank. But so yeah, with that being said, I'll close this up here. I did a stream 24 hours in, because there was a ton of news from the initial part of the invasion. I'll probably keep on doing these 2 or 3 days to sort of give a general update. I'll try to have my videos try to have more still images and less videos stacked up. Phoenix is saying, yeah, the Russians haven't established the supply lines yet. Yeah, they're sort of in the process of they're sort of in the process of doing that, right? Anybody who says the Russians don't know what they're doing right now is probably very uninformed, and moreover, probably has never even seen like an American heavy unit operate. I'm not gonna share a whole ton of details on how long we have to go without refueling in the U.S. Army, but this is a lot of dudes who are coming out of it seems to be like a lot of guys who have a lot of experience fighting in light, maybe. So I mean, so. And with that being said, let me check on the video. I'll check on the stream here before we close up shop. See how many people are watching. I'll thank the viewers. 5 people watching now, and checking in. And if you have any last minute comments or questions, feel free to drop them. We have Quarter Goes, Josh Graydon, Jeff Potts, Phoenix Argus, and Brother Malachi. Stop. So yeah, probably next 2-3 days, depending on developments, I'll have another stream, and I'll be scanning the news so you guys don't have to. So this is the Armchair Warlord out here.